are the British people, when they vote in a general election, to be able to change the policies of the government that has previously been there. And it is already a fact that whatever government is in power, our agricultural policy is now controlled from Brussels, our trade policy is controlled from Brussels, our industrial policy is controlled from Brussels. It is a democratic and not a nationalistic argument. Well, I campaigned for the referendum. If you know this, I was in a minority of one on the National Executive and the Shadow Cabinet in 71. They didn't want a referendum, but in the end we got a referendum after we'd gone in and we lost it. And then I was on the Council of Ministers. And that was the most shattering experience I've ever been in my life, because I was the representative of Britain, and for 6 months I was the president of the Council of Energy Ministers. I wasn't allowed to submit a document. Only the Commission, who are bureaucrats, could submit a document. I could say yes or no, sort of a constitutional monarch, if you like. They controlled it. It met in secret. It made laws for Britain and everywhere else. It met in secret. And when I suggested we met in public, well, they nearly strangled me, because all their dirty little deals would have come out. And so the more I thought about this, and this is what it's about now, it is about democracy. And remember this, I was a member for 51 years. Members of Parliament are lent the powers of their constituents, and they have to return those powers undiminished at the end. It's not for members of Parliament to give away the powers that were lent to them, because they don't belong to members of Parliament, they belong to the electorate. And that is a critical matter. And now I say something else. I mean, we're primarily concerned with Britain, but it terrifies me that Germany didn't allow its own people to have a referendum on whether Germany should enter the European Union and have the treaty. And you know, before the war, Hitler wasn't exactly a Democrat, and that practice of everything being decided at the top has been carried on to that. France had a referendum, defeated it, and now Sarkozy is trying to bypass it. And we live in a continent where increasingly power has gone to a group of people who are not elected, cannot be removed, and don't have to listen to us. I mean, Mandelson's a very powerful man. He wasn't even elected by the House of Commons. Blair appointed him under the royal prerogative. And Mandelson doesn't have to listen to us. With all the defects of our democracy, the reason governments listen to people is because you get your power from the people. I mean, being an MP, you know this, we're in a very unusual position. You're one employee and 60,000 employers. Everyone in your constituency employs you. The bus driver, the street sweeper, the home help, the policeman, they employ you. You can say what you like and always have done, but they can get rid of you. Because they can get rid of you, you have to listen to them. Mandelson doesn't have to listen to anybody. And it is the most bureaucratic, terrifying system in the world. And it's being imposed on us on the grounds it's tidying up. I must say, if tidying up involves tearing up the British Constitution, well, that's an interesting definition of tidying up. And I think this argument is an overwhelming argument. Now, there are other views of Europe. As I say, I don't want to go back to the old nationalism because of the bloodshed that took place. You could have a United States of Europe. You could have a president and a Congress and a House of Representatives. I mean, it would be wholly unwieldy, but you couldn't complain about it. After all, America isn't governed by a commission. Would you want this country governed by a commission? You could apply the European Constitution to Britain, and you'd find there were commissioners, and we don't even elect European members of Parliament. Do you realise that? You vote for the party. I can't write to an MEP and say, I won't vote for you again, to write back and say, Tony, you never voted for me in the first place. You voted for the party, and Blair decides who is the candidate. So the thing is absolutely undemocratic, and the effect of it, of course, is to create a lot of hostility to it, which means it won't work anyway. I'll tell you one thing, even if I believed in it, I think this system will end up with the breakup of the European Union like Yugoslavia, and I do not want that to happen either. I do not want to find we go back to hostility based on blaming the French or blaming the Italians or the Germans, because what's wrong is the system is wrong. And that is what we have to prevent. Now, how do you win the argument? Well, I mean, I listened to all this stuff this week about we've got to participate more. The manifesto is going to be put out to a referendum. Well, manifestos only last for a couple of years.
But this decision is far more important than the next Labour manifesto, because it decides who governs, by what system.